Support for this project is provided by Mohawk Finishing Products. From lacquer to fill sticks, Mohawk has all your finishing needs. And Rockler Woodworking and Hardware. Create with confidence. Hey everyone, and thanks for tuning in. I'm John Peters, and today I'm going to start building a sofa table. And if you want to build this project, I'll have free plans on my website. For the legs of this table, I'm using a Douglas fir 4x4 post. This happens to have a really nice straight grain, and this piece is left over from the modern bench build, which was a project I posted a little more than a year ago. Turned out to be a very popular video and project. A lot of people have built that bench over the year, and if you didn't see it and you want to check it out, I'll have a link in the description. For this project, I'm going to get started by turning this 4x4 post into 4 legs. I'll get started by squaring up the 4x4 post on the joiner, and then I'll use my table saw to rip the post into 4 legs. Next, I'll use the chop saw to cut the legs to length. I'm calling the part that will connect the legs together an apron, and to make the apron I'm using a 2x4 from the home store that happens to have a really nice straight grain. First I'll mill the 2x4s to remove the roundover, and then I'll join the boards together. While the glue's drying on the apron, I'll use another part of the same 2x4 to make a cross brace. I let the glue set up just about for 3 hours, and now I'm going to unclamp these and I'll run them through the sander along with this piece, which is going to be the centerpiece. So these pieces here, this will get cut in half, they'll be attached to the legs. And then this piece will be the centerpiece, which will eventually hold the top. I'll use a mortise and tenon joint to join the apron to the legs, and to cut the mortise I'll use a mortise cutting machine. I've got the machine set up with a 3/8 mortising chisel, and I'm cutting a 1/2 inch mortise. So I'll hold the leg up tight against the fence, cut most of the mortise, then flip the leg and finish the mortise. Once I've finished with the machine, I'll use a sharp chisel to clean up the mortise. With the mortises cut, I can move on to the apron. I'll set up a stop block on my crosscut sled and cut both aprons to length. I've set the fence of the table saw at 1/2 inch to cut a 5/8 tenon, but before holding the apron up tight against the fence, I'll make a few passes at the beginning of the tenon to make sure I've got a nice tight fit. Now I'll use the bandsaw to trim the tenons to size. I'll use a lap joint to attach the cross brace to the apron, and I'll have these measurements on the design plans. When you're making a lap joint, it's always a good idea to make a test piece to make sure you have a nice tight fit. Well, I'm kind of designing this piece as I go, and it turns out that this brace here is a little too small. It's only 3 inches, and the only way I can add height to the table is to add to the top of this brace. And to do that, I'm going to use this piece of sapele, simply because I have it here in the shop. It's one of those oddball pieces that have been kicking around. It's really not good for anything other than making frames. And I think it's actually going to add to the design because you're not really going to see it unless you're sitting in a chair that's lower than the table. And so it won't be such a harsh contrast in the Douglas fir. So to do that, I'll go ahead and cut this piece to length, mill it, and then join it to the brace with biscuits. Until this point, I really haven't spent any money on this project, so I decided to splurge a little bit on the top, and I bought a piece of 1x8x8 straight grained Douglas fir. I've cut the board in half, and I'll attach the 2 boards together to make the top. To join the boards, I'm using biscuits, and I'll clamp them together using the short foot clamps from Rockler. I've become a big fan of these clamps. They're lightweight and easy to use. Now I'm ripping 2 pieces of sapele that will be attached to the cross brace for securing the top. Again, I'll use a lap joint to attach these pieces to the main cross brace. I'm using the drill press to drill slotted holes to attach the top. The slotted holes will allow the top to expand and contract. I've cut the top to size, and now I'm cutting a 5-degree downward angle on the top as a decorative edge. I decided to reinforce the lap joints with screws, so I'll need to pre-drill and countersink for the screws. With this hole, I'll get the hole started on the drill press, and that hole will act as the guide for the handheld drill. With all the parts milled and sanded, it's time for the glue up, and I'll get started by gluing the legs to the apron. And I'll let the glue set up overnight before attaching the cross brace. It's a good idea to use a wet rag and remove any glue squeeze out before it has a chance to set up. I use a biscuit joiner to add slots to the center support, and I'll use these slots to attach the top to the brace with wooden clips. Okay, well, I'm finally ready for finish. I'm using Finisher's Choice lacquer from Mohawk Finishing Products, and this is the Rockler HVLP spray system. Spraying finish is a huge time saver, and this HVLP spray system from Rockler is an inexpensive way to get started, and it does a good job. After letting the finish cure for a day, I use 4-0 steel wool and Mohawk's wool loop paste to hand rub the finish. This gives the finish a nice, smooth, soft feel. I've been using this product for more than 25 years, and it's one of the last steps on just about everything I make. Okay, well, that was a fun project, and I think a good project to practice your joinery on. I hope you enjoyed this episode. If you did, please like, comment, and subscribe. As always, thanks for tuning in, and I'll see you next time. Check out my website at johnpeters.com to find free plans for this project and all of my woodworking projects. To keep up with me, follow me on Instagram and Facebook.